Elvis saved 200 people from a burning hotel nobody knew for 40 years. 3 a.m. The hotel was on fire. Celebrities were evacuating first. Elvis ran back inside. Again. And again. What he did for the next 2 hours made firefighters say he was braver than any of them. But Elvis made everyone promise to never tell this story. Until now. It was July 8, 1974. The MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas. 26 stories. And on that hot summer night, it was about to become a death trap. Elvis wasn't supposed to be there. He was staying at the International Hotel, but that night he'd been invited to a private poker game in one of the MGM Grand's penthouse suites. The game had gone late. By 3 a.m., Elvis was still there, chatting with a film producer. And that's when they smelled smoke. Not cigarette smoke. Something chemical. Something wrong. Elvis walked to the door and opened it. The hallway was filling with gray haze. That's not the kitchen. Within seconds, the fire alarm started blaring. Chaos erupted throughout the MGM Grand. An electrical fire had started on the 3rd floor. By the time Elvis opened that door, 200 people were already trapped on the upper floors. Picture this, Elvis could have taken the elevator straight down. He was on the 24th floor with a clear path to safety. The producer was already heading for the exit. "Come on, Elvis. We need to go now." But Elvis had frozen in the hallway. He was listening. Screaming. Actual human screaming. Coming from down the hall. Elvis looked at the emergency exit. Then back down the hallway where smoke was getting thicker. Then he ran toward the screaming. If you think that's brave, wait until you hear what happened next. Elvis started going room to room, pounding on doors, yelling, "Fire! Get out!" Most people answered quickly. Elvis would point them toward the stairwell. But some rooms didn't answer. That's when Elvis started kicking in doors. The first door he kicked open, he found an elderly couple still in bed. "Get up!" Elvis shouted. "The hotel's on fire." He helped them out of bed and guided them to the hallway. The smoke was getting thick. Elvis pulled his shirt over his mouth, but his eyes were burning. The second door he kicked open, he found a young family, parents and 2 small children, paralyzed with fear. "It's okay," Elvis said. "I'm going to get you out. But we need to move right now." He picked up the smaller child and led them to the stairwell. But the situation was worse than he'd thought. The stairwell was packed. Hundreds trying to evacuate at once. People were panicking. Pushing. Someone fell. Elvis made a split-second decision that probably saved dozens of lives. "Stop," he shouted in his deepest, most commanding voice. "Everybody stop." Incredibly, people stopped. They turned. And they recognized him. "Listen to me," Elvis said, still holding the child. "We're all getting out of here. But we need to be calm. We need to help each other. Stay low. Move steady. Don't push." Something about Elvis's presence made people listen. The panic turned into purpose. Elvis handed the child to their father. "Go. I'll be right behind you." But that was a lie. As soon as the family started down, Elvis turned around and ran back into the hallway. Because he'd heard more screaming. Elvis made 3 more trips back into that smoke-filled 24th floor. Each time, conditions were worse. On his second trip, he found a woman in a wheelchair. Elvis didn't hesitate. He picked her up, wheelchair and all, and carried her to the stairwell. "You're insane," she told him. "You're going to die up there." "Not today," Elvis said, and ran back. On his third trip, he found teenagers who'd passed out drunk. They were unconscious from smoke inhalation. Elvis got 2 of them conscious enough to walk. The third wasn't responding. Elvis threw the kid over his shoulder and headed for the stairwell again. By now, firefighters were arriving. One of them, a man named Robert Martinez, met Elvis in the stairwell. "Mr. Presley, you need to get out now. There's more people up there," Elvis said, coughing heavily. His face was covered in soot. "We've got it," Martinez said firmly. "You've done enough." But Elvis shook his head. "Not until everyone's out." Martinez later said that moment changed his entire perspective on courage. Martinez made Elvis promise to stay in the stairwell, to help coordinate evacuation but not go back into the smoke. For the next hour, Elvis stayed there. He helped people down. He carried children. He kept people calm. "Don't worry, folks," he kept saying. "We're all getting out of here." By 5 a.m., the fire was under control. 200 people had been evacuated. Miraculously, there were no fatalities. But here's the part that makes this story legendary. Elvis refused to take any credit. When news media arrived, Elvis had already left. He'd slipped away before cameras showed up. The hotel wanted to give him an award. Elvis refused. The mayor wanted to give him a commendation. Elvis said no. "Why?" Martinez asked him a week later. Elvis shook his head. "If people know it was me, they'll make it about celebrity." But it wasn't about that. It was just about helping people who needed help. He paused. "Besides, you and your team are the real heroes. I just did what anyone would do." Elvis made everyone promise not to tell the story. And incredibly, they kept that promise for decades. It wasn't until 2014, 37 years after Elvis's death, that Fire Chief Robert Martinez finally broke his silence at his retirement ceremony. "Elvis Presley made me promise not to tell anyone what he did that night," Martinez said. "But I think the world needs to know that the king of rock and roll was also the kind of man who ran into burning buildings to save strangers." Martinez revealed that Elvis had made at least 8 trips into smoke-filled hallways. That he'd personally helped evacuate at least 30 people. That he'd kicked in 7 doors. "Without Elvis Presley," Martinez said, "we would have lost people that night." When Martinez's speech went viral, survivors started coming forward. The woman in the wheelchair shared her story. "Elvis carried me down a smoke-filled hallway. When I tried to thank him, he just said, 'That's what neighbors do.'" The teenagers reached out. "We would have died that night. Elvis literally saved our lives." The family described how Elvis kept them calm. "He was singing to my little sister as he carried her down the stairs. Just singing quietly to keep her from being scared." Over 40 people came forward. The number of lives he impacted was estimated at over 200. David Chen, one of the teenagers Elvis saved, went on to become a firefighter, then a fire chief. "Everything I've done in my career," David said, "every life I've saved, it all goes back to that night when Elvis Presley taught me what real heroism looks like." Subscribe for more stories where hidden acts revealed extraordinary character. Today, there's a plaque in the rebuilt MGM Grand Hotel. It reads, "In memory of the heroes of July 8, 1974. Ordinary people who did extraordinary things." Elvis's name isn't on it. That's exactly how he would have wanted it. But everyone who knows the story understands the plaque includes him. The man who ran toward the screaming. Who refused recognition. Who made everyone promise to keep his secret. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that true heroism doesn't seek recognition. What Elvis proved that night, ordinary people are capable of extraordinary courage when someone needs help. Fire Chief Martinez said it best, "Elvis showed me that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway." He was scared. But he went back. Again and again. That's the Elvis the world never got to see. So did 200 other people who owe their lives to the king of rock and roll who refused to be called a hero. Because real heroes don't need the title. They just need to hear someone who needs help. And they run toward them. No matter what.